Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode of the month. This is the show where at the end of every month or the beginning of every month, depending on the day this episode drops, I look back at the month that be and talk about my favorite episode of television that came out that month. February had a lot of duds for me. There was really nothing I got excited about. I was like, is it going to be Miss Maisel? It wasn't, because not every episode sold it for me. Is it going to be Superman and Lois? The Bizarro fights were cool, but there's just some things holding it back. There's one episode that came out this month for February 2022 that I had to talk about. And I'm going to do a big episode or a big review talking about the entire season, but I needed to talk about this now because it's very important to me. It's a topic I feel like I have to bring into the public zeitgeist again, even in whatever form I'm talking about it in. So this episode of the Month is going to be dedicated to Pam and Tommy, episode 6, Pamela in Wonderland. Spoiler alert for a couple weeks from now, when I do my big video for Pam and Tommy, I don't like the show. I think there's so much wrong about the pacing, the flow, what it's trying to say, what it's trying to do. I just really don't like. But this episode was so important to me, and I think one of the best things to come out of television in a long time for all the reasons I hate television and I hate doing stuff like this. So, I want to say this about Pam and Tommy to begin with. This is one of the few times I genuinely feel like having a show exist is a bad thing. Like, the fact that this show is around, is popular, people are talking about it, infuriates me. Because the fact we are still profiting, we are still making money and profiting off of the harassment and trauma that Pamela Anderson had to face during this time in her life, it is appalling. The woman has been through enough. And I know there's something to be said about telling these stories, and they are important. But Pamela herself has said she doesn't want to relive this. She doesn't want to tell this story anymore. So the fact that we have to keep going back and trauma dumping this information is so infuriating. If Pamela says she doesn't want to be a part of this series, don't make the series, because this is her story. You are putting her line and her life on the line. It's like, why would you keep doing this to her when she doesn't want you to do it? So the fact we are still literally rehearsing and faking the footage of her sex tape, and we're editing it, we're making it look so authentic to the details of the actual sex tape is so infuriating and annoying. And this episode is literally dedicated to, I think it's a deposition, I'm not sure what you'd call it, where she's in a room getting answers some questions about the actual court case, about, like, I think it's what Penthouse that could be potentially trying to release the photos from the sex tape, so she has to go into a deposition to talk about it. A bunch of old dudes asking a young, vibrant, sexy woman about her sex life, about her relationship to her husband, what she considers to be sexualizing or pornographic. It is so traumatic and harmful that I actually hated myself for watching this. I'm like, why do we still have to do this? There is no reason why we have to make this woman go through this again. She has suffered enough, and the fact that we as an audience are still making her do it. Like, when you are watching the scenes in this deposition and you just hear the sounds of the sex tape in the background, and we're watching the reaction of all the men in the room and this woman who's so clearly broken from this experience, it is so gut-wrenchingly painful. And I gotta commend Lily James for doing a stellar performance of just capturing how hard that would be, because that's something that no man will ever understand. They won't. And I feel like a lot of my audience is male, so I'm just going to say, anybody who's watching this that's a man, you are never going to have these feelings. You're never going to understand what this woman went through, and that is just infuriating, and it's just so hard to watch. And I'm sure some guys are like, oh, come on, she's just a hot girl. Like, yeah, but she has feelings, and she's somebody who is comfortable in her body. Like, she willingly goes to Playboy. Her mother supports her choices to go to Playboy. She's like, if you feel comfortable in your body and you want to do these things, I'm going to support you along the way. She's comfortable enough to take these opportunities and go down this route. And there's a beautiful scene. I really like this scene where she's talking to Hugh Hefner, and he's like, people are going to buy a version of you, but don't let that stop you from being the real Pamela Anderson. There's something very powerful about that statement, and I'm sure you can say what you will about Hugh Hefner. The guy sucks. But I think Pamela should deserve to be who she wants to be. And we see her evolution through that, and how she's like, hey, I genuinely love Tommy Lee. I want to be with him. I want to try something with him. And they do that. They try to have a life, and it's really cool to see. And you buy that relationship. You buy the chemistry. You buy the way they act towards each other. It's such a pleasant thing just to experience and to see. But there's so much brokenness behind her words that it just sucks. And you feel the pain in every time. Like a man, it's the men. It's the men who are ruining her, who are hurting her. And you just feel that at every scene, because every female character in this episode is trying to support Pam. Her mother supports her. The girls at Playboy support her. The woman in the deposition who's taking the notes even checks on her in the washroom. Is like, I've seen some brutal times, but this is the worst. Like, everyone is actively trying to destroy this woman for literally being happy, for being in love, for using her body in the way that she chose to, and suddenly that is harmful. And I completely get why you'd want that just to be gone from existence, because that sucks. That hurts. That is so hard to watch. I feel so bad for her. And just having this episode exist, I wish it didn't. I wish we didn't have to do this piece of television where it's like, this story didn't need to be told again. We didn't have to dig this up and try it again. Like, I don't think it was necessary. And it could be necessary if Pamela was like, yes, we should do it. I wanted people to see my side of the story. But she didn't want that. So why are we doing it? Why are we still pretending like this is what she wanted? This is what she'd want to do? It's painful to watch. It is hard to watch. The way she knows that sex is okay and she is comfortable talking about sex and being involved in sexually explicit activity with the way the men in her life, especially in that deposition, are like, doesn't matter. What you consider sex or pornography could be different than what I'm saying. So you doing photos for Playboy, is that sexual? Is that pornography? It's like, no, that is just business practice, and I'm comfortable to do it. It's tragic. And it's such a hard watch, especially if you support Pamela, because I support Pamela. I love Pamela Anderson. I think she's an incredible just advocate for a lot of great things that I also support. She is a comfortable woman who is comfortable enough in her sexuality and her presence in this world where she has made a lot of interesting art and career choices because of it. But there's also some tragedy to that where you kind of become a sex object that people can never escape that version of you. I was talking to somebody the other day and we compared it to Marilyn Monroe. And I think that's like the most accurate case for the modern times of a Marilyn Monroe figure being brought down to the level of being overly sexualized instead of seeing them for their worth. It's Pamela Anderson. And this episode is my episode of the month just because seeing all that pain on Lily James' face as she's portraying these, I'm sure it's only like just a scratch of the surface of what Pamela is actually feeling in this situation. It's hard to watch, it's incredibly painful, and I'm super amazed that they made it work in a good way. It's the only episode of the show I think was well paced, well edited, and you buy the love between her and Tommy. And that to me is one of the most important things for this show, and that's why it is my episode of the month. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.